in this video, I'm going to explain to you the number one mistake that I think language learners make. And this mistake is so bad that anyone who makes it is basically guaranteed to not make any progress in the language they're learning. And I think this isn't something I've really heard talked about at all on YouTube or anything like that. So I'm just going to explain what the mistake is and then how you can rectify it effectively. So here is your situation. You basically, when you're learning a language, you're constantly bombarded with problems. You don't know what to study, you can't remember words, you feel like you're wasting your time, learning's difficult, you can't find enjoyable content, you can't find time to study, you're not motivated, blah, 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 blah. There's a bunch of different problems. But they all have one thing in common, which is that they're not problems so much as obstacles. They're obstacles you have to navigate. When you don't feel motivated to study, you have to navigate that so that you can study, so that you can make progress. If you don't navigate that, you're obviously not going to make any progress. If you can't remember words, if learning's too difficult, if you can't find time to study, all of these things are obstacles that you need to navigate, or else you're not going to make progress, right? That's pretty common sense. Here is the real problem, which is emotional. The real problem is your emotional control. That is the number one problem that I think people don't understand when they're learning a language, and it is the bringer of all failure and all kind of frustration in giving up when you're learning a language. So whenever you encounter an obstacle, obviously it's frustrating. Obviously nobody wants to encounter an obstacle. Nobody wants to not feel like language learning, etc. But what a lot of people do is they immediately go into emotional mode. They perceive the obstacle as painful, as it obviously is, and they don't actually solve it. They just get frustrated. And here is what happens. Whenever you encounter a problem and you become emotional, you actually lower your emotional state. You obviously become sad, angry, anxious, all those emotions. And what happens is the perceived pain actually increases. So if, for example, you can't remember words, you're not remembering words, that you're doing flashcards, and you get angry and frustrated, what actually happens is it's even harder to remember words. And the fact that you can't remember words looks even worse than it did before. And so it's way easier to actually give up and find other problems as well when you're in this kind of very low emotional state where you're feeling frustrated and angry. The solution is to exercise emotional control. So whenever you do encounter problems, instead of going into emotional mode, what you need to do is go into problem-solving mode. Not emotional mode, problem-solving mode. And once you understand this, once this is the first thought that enters your head whenever you encounter a problem, like whenever you can't remember words, you go, okay, how do I go into problem-solving mode? I guarantee you will 10x the progress you make in language learning and probably other things in life as well. So I'll give you an example. Let's go back to the page where there are a bunch of examples. You don't know what to study. So you want to learn the language, but you don't know what the next thing you should study is to make progress in the language. Rather than get emotional and worry about wasting your time, am I, going to put my time into the right thing, blah, 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 immediately go into problem-solving mode. Think, how do I solve this problem? And then you go, okay, I'm not at the level I want to be at yet in the language. So what is the difference? What does me in a year or so, who is, can speak the language, what does he or she have that I don't have currently? Okay, I'm not very good at speaking in the future tense, or I'm not very good at reading words in the first chapter of Harry Potter, or whatever book you're reading. And that can be the thing you're targeting next. You can actually start studying that. You could go after that as your next kind of short-term goal. And once you actually go into problem-solving mode, what happens is you raise your emotional state, the perceived pain reduces because you're able to solve problems, and you make more progress. So overall, this is the number one thing anyone who wants to actually make progress in a language needs to do. If you don't do this, you will fail at language learning. It will delay you so much that you will give up because you're actually incapable of navigating obstacles. But yeah, hopefully you did get a lot from this video. If you want more like this, I'd highly recommend you check out the Language Learning Accelerator, which I'll have linked in the description. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a good one.